You're not ready, not for what's coming next. Because when the power grid fails, and it will, you've got hours, not days, before desperation turns to violence. Over 71% of Americans admit they can't go 3 days without electricity. But here's the kicker. Most looting starts within the first 4 to 6 hours of a major blackout. Not days, hours. I'm Zach. I've been through 4 blackouts, 3 forced evacuations, and 1 riot where people were dragging generators out of pickup trucks at gunpoint. And let me tell you, when the lights go out, it's not just food they're after. It's everything. Water, power, medicine, hope, you. That's why this list matters. These are the 15 most hunted items in a blackout. And I'm going to show you exactly how to hide them, disguise them, and protect them using tactics learned in real collapse zones. Not theory, field-tested reality. Let's start with number 15. Because if you wait till the lights go out to figure this out, you're already someone else's target. 15. Flashlights and light sources. When the grid dies, darkness wins. And if you don't think people will steal your flashlight, you've never spent a night in pitch-black silence where every noise sounds like a threat. But let's break this down. In most urban and suburban areas, ambient light pollution from streetlights, cars, and electronics means people haven't truly experienced darkness in years. When it hits, complete, oppressive, all-consuming blackout, your tiny LED flashlight becomes a lighthouse in the void. In the 2003 Northeast blackout, emergency calls spiked 50% overnight, not because of violence, but because people were panicking from disorientation and fear. And that's with phones working. Now imagine total grid failure. No phones, no sirens, no moonlight, just black. And your flashlight? It's a beacon for miles. In Lebanon's ongoing rolling blackouts, break-ins started not with noise, but with light. People spotted flickers and followed them. The strategy? First, never store all your lighting gear in one place. That drawer full of flashlights under the sink? Rookie mistake. Spread them. I hide mine in waterproof sleeves inside toilet tanks, in cereal boxes, even in the attic inside old Christmas tins. Second, disguise the glow. Use red light filters or electrical tape slits so only you can see where you're walking. Third, never leave a light on unattended, even for 1 minute. It tells the entire block you're powered up and therefore prepped. And last, hide spares where no one looks, behind ductwork, in hollow curtain rods, or taped inside hollowed-out furniture legs. Because once light becomes rare, it becomes priceless. And once it's priceless, it's hunted. Never be the brightest house on a dark street. Be silent, be dark, be invisible. That's how you survive the first night. 14. OTC medications and first aid. Let's stop pretending you'll figure it out if someone gets hurt after the grid goes down. There's no ambulance coming, no ER to check into. And if you think you're safe because you've got a first aid kit in your closet, you're dead wrong, because that's where everyone looks first. Let's talk numbers. In post-Hurricane Puerto Rico, it took 78 days for 95% of pharmacies to restock essential over-the-counter drugs. That's nearly 3 months without ibuprofen, antibiotics, or antidiarrheals. You know what people did? They robbed homes for painkillers, not narcotics, just Tylenol. And guess what? They found them in the medicine cabinets. So where are yours? Still in that plastic tote marked first aid? Then you're a walking target. Now listen, these aren't luxuries. Hydrocortisone, allergy meds, antacids, electrolyte packets, these are survival tools. A simple infected cut becomes a fatal wound without the right supplies. In Bosnia, during the siege of Sarajevo, black market Tylenol was worth more than cigarettes. Here's what I do. I vacuum seal meds by category: pain relief, wound care, GI, and respiratory, and store them in non-obvious spots. One batch is hidden in a bleach wipe container, another inside a fake can of soup. I even keep trauma gear rolled in a sleeping bag with the label peeled off. And here's a trick most don't think of. Rotate expiration dates and scratch out the labels. Why? Because if someone finds your stash, they might not trust expired pills or unknown bottles. You want them to leave it behind. Last thing, know how to use everything. A med kit without knowledge is just expensive clutter. Study now, practice now. Because in a blackout, your life expectancy drops the moment you get a fever and can't treat it. Hide your meds like they're gold, because they are. 13. Fuel stabilizer, oil, and spare parts. You can have all the gas in the world stored up, but without stabilizer, it turns into varnish in 6 months. Try running your generator on that. Here's the cold truth. 90% of people who stockpile fuel forget that gas is perishable. And that mistake is the difference between warmth and freezing, cooking and hunger, staying or evacuating. Let's talk reality. During Hurricane Laura in 2020, hundreds of generators failed. Not because they were broken, but because the gas went bad. Mechanics were overwhelmed with people begging for help. And guess what? No parts, no stabilizer, no oil. These aren't luxuries. They're lifelines. And they'll be the first thing raiders target once they realize your generator still hums. It's the small things: spare spark plugs, oil filters, air filters, carb cleaner. Once the supply chain dies, that $3 item becomes priceless. But here's where it gets dangerous. If someone sees you running gear after day 3, you're marked. They'll follow the sound, they'll smell the exhaust. And when they break in, they won't just take your gas, they'll take the machine. So how do you protect? This? 1. Never store everything together. Fuel in the shed, oil in the basement, stabilizer in a labeled box of Christmas lights. 2. Camouflage. Dirty up your spare parts boxes, scratch the labels, make them look like junk. 3. Keep some decoys. Bad gas, rusted plugs, used filters, so if someone finds your stash, they think it's worthless. 4. Learn basic repairs now. YouTube won't be there. I practice monthly. How to clean a carb, change oil, replace plugs. Because when the lights go out, your gear is only as good as your ability to fix it. And last, keep your gear silent. Mufflers, barriers, earth berms. Because sound is a siren. Silence is safety. 12. Manual tools and hand-operated gear. Most people think they're ready because they've got power drills, electric chainsaws, even electric can openers stacked in the garage. That's adorable. Let me spell it out. When the grid collapses, anything with a plug becomes a paperweight. And you can only run so much off batteries. That's why manual tools, non-electric, human-powered gear aren't just useful. They're survival-grade assets. In Venezuela during rolling blackouts, folks started trading basic hand tools like gold. A working hand crank grinder fetched a month's worth of rice. Why? Because when you can't recharge, repair, or cut without a plug, the guy with the brace drill owns the future. And guess what? Thieves figured this out too. Hardware stores were looted after grocery stores, specifically for crowbars, wrenches, axes, and bolt cutters. That should terrify you. Now ask yourself, where are your manual tools? Neatly hanging in a pegboard wall in the shed? In a labeled tote in the garage? Then you're screwed. That's the first place looters go. Here's what I do. I keep 3 sets. 1 visible, the decoys, 1 buried inside an old HVAC duct in my basement, and a core set sealed in a 55-gallon drum in my yard, under compost. No one's digging through rotting banana peels for a handsaw. Also, disguise them. Wrap pliers in plastic wrap and store them in cereal boxes. Old cookie tins make perfect sleeves for screwdrivers and Allen wrenches. And here's something else. Learn how to use them. When the lights go out, you're not just the cook and medic. You're the mechanic, carpenter, and plumber, too. No batteries, no YouTube. Just you, your hands, and the right tool hidden where no one thinks to look. 11. Communication gear and radios. Here's what no one tells you. When the grid goes down, communication becomes currency. Cell towers die within hours. Landlines collapse. And your smartphone becomes a glorified paperweight unless you've got a backup plan. This is why comms gear, shortwave radios, ham receivers, walkie-talkies, hand crank radios, will become the most hunted tech in a long-term blackout. Because he who hears survives. Look at Puerto Rico after Maria. Entire regions had no communication for months. Those with shortwave radios were the only ones getting updates, where the aid was going, which roads were safe, which towns had food. And guess what? Once word spread, they got robbed. People started stealing radios not to sell, but to survive. Even emergency responders had gear disappear. Now think of your own setup. Got a Baofeng UV-5R? A Kaido Voyager? Where do you keep them? Still in their boxes in a drawer labeled radio stuff? You've got a target on your back. Here's what I do. One radio gets buried in a fake router case, still blinking thanks to a dummy battery pack. Another's wrapped in foil, stored in a locked metal ammo can in the attic. Faraday protected, invisible. My crank radio? Stored in an old board game box next to Monopoly. No one's checking the game of life for emergency gear. Also, disable the speakers. Use an earpiece only. You do not want your emergency weather report blaring when the entire block is in silence. That's suicide. Learn your frequencies now. Memorize them. Label in code, not plain text. And if you think radios aren't high priority, remember this. In every war zone, from Syria to Somalia, information was more valuable than bullets. Don't just hide your radio, protect your voice, because in a blackout, hearing is power. Broadcasting? That can get you killed. 10. Prescription medications. Let me hit you with the most brutal truth in prepping. You can survive without power. You cannot survive if your heart stops beating, your blood pressure spikes, or your insulin runs out. And yet nearly 60% of Americans take prescription medication daily. Heart meds, insulin, SSRIs, thyroid hormones, asthma inhalers, and almost none of them have a secure backup supply. During Hurricane Katrina, over 70% of deaths in the first 10 days were tied to unmanaged medical conditions, not trauma. Let that sink in. People didn't die from injury. They died from lack of access to pills. And it gets worse. After Hurricane Harvey, pharmacies were looted before grocery stores. Not for narcotics, for blood pressure meds, insulin, and antibiotics. That's how bad it gets. You think no one's coming for your cholesterol meds? Think again. So what do? First, if you're on life-dependent meds, you must build a hidden 60 to 90-day buffer. Use travel excuses, mail orders, even pet prescriptions. Do what it takes. Then hide them like they're diamonds. One bottle in a hollowed-out book labeled Tax Law 1998. Another in a waterproof bag inside your toilet tank. Rotate constantly. Never show your hand. And here's the twist. Don't forget veterinary meds. Fish antibiotics and livestock drugs like penicillin, doxycycline. They're over-the-counter and effective. I keep mine in a sealed paint can in the garage, buried under real tools. Label it paint thinner. No one checks. Also, learn dosing. Now. Blackout medicine is like battlefield triage. Fast, dirty, life-saving. If you think your local Walgreens will be open, you've already lost. The first people who die in a grid collapse aren't looted. They're forgotten. Don't be one of them. Hide your meds, hide your backups, and treat every pill like it's your last. 9. Navigation tools and physical maps. Here's a terrifying realization most people never consider. Once the grid collapses, your phone is just a flashlight with a selfie camera. No Wi-Fi, no GPS, no Google Maps. And guess what? In a blackout scenario, even car-based nav systems often fail, especially if satellites are disrupted or cellular triangulation goes offline. In the 2017 solar flare scare, GPS systems in rural Sweden and Norway cut out completely. That was from space weather. Imagine a full cyber attack or EMP event. You're blind. And that's why physical navigation tools, topographical maps, city street grids, compasses, and pre-marked evacuation routes go from nerdy prepper stuff to the only way out. During the 2023 Lahaina wildfires in Maui, thousands were trapped simply because navigation apps failed and nobody had printed maps. People drove in circles straight into the fire. The tragic result? Over 100 dead. But it wasn't the flames that killed them, it was bad information. So let's get real. You need printed maps of your city, your state, your bug-out route, your fallback zones, and you don't store them in the glove box. Rookie move. That's the first place thieves will grab if they jack your vehicle. I keep mine laminated, folded, and taped to the inside of an old Monopoly board. Another stash is vacuum sealed inside a cereal bag, tucked in with oats. I even keep a compass in an old deodorant stick shell. Why? Because anyone who sees a real compass knows you're thinking long-term. That's a threat. Don't be flashy, be clever, and memorize at least 2 exit routes on foot. Because if roads jam and satellites fail, your life depends on whether you know the back way out. And trust me, when people panic, they all go the same way. Don't be with them. Be ahead of them. 8. Baby supplies. This is the one that hits the hardest and gets ignored the most. If you've got a baby, toddler, or even just plan to shelter with someone who does, baby supplies aren't optional. They're mission critical. Diapers, formula, rash cream, baby wipes, infant fever reducers. These are not luxuries. These are the line between life and slow, agonizing death. In the 2015 Nepal earthquake aftermath, UNICEF reported that over 70% of infant fatalities came not from trauma, but from dehydration and infection due to lack of basic care supplies. You don't want to know what happens when a baby gets diarrhea and there's no clean water or wipes. And if you think people will help, let me remind you. During the Texas freeze in 2021, families were trading 10 gallons of gas for a single can of baby formula. You think that didn't make them targets? Here's the worst part. Even talking about having baby supplies can get you hit. Looters think you're soft. Desperate parents think you're their salvation. Both will knock on your door or break it down, so you better hide like hell. Me? I store diapers in a sealed tote labeled winter sweaters. Formula cans get wrapped in aluminum foil, hidden inside paint buckets. Wipes go in vacuum bags stuffed in pillowcases. And pacifiers? Inside an old Ziploc full of tangled wires. Nobody checks a cord drawer. But here's the real trick. Silence. Because nothing gives you away like a crying baby. Soundproof one room. Black out the windows. And always have something to soothe the child. Teething toys, a solar white noise box, a worn t-shirt with mom's scent. Because in a blackout, the loudest noise isn't a gunshot, it's a baby crying when the world is silent. Hide the supplies, shield the child, and protect your signal. 7. Trash bags and waste disposal. Nobody talks about this. Everyone preps food, water, and defense. But the smartest preppers know trash is your biggest liability in a long-term blackout. Why? Because every wrapper, every can, every paper towel you throw away tells a story. It tells anyone digging through your garbage exactly what you have. You think that old soup can is harmless? It's evidence. It says you've got canned goods. That wrapper from a protein bar tells people you've got calories. And in a starving neighborhood, that's like leaving a treasure map on your front lawn. In Argentina's 2001 collapse, desperate scavengers, called cartoneros, weren't just looking for recyclables. They were cataloging homes based on trash patterns. You threw out packaging from imported food? You got marked. Break-ins followed. In Ukraine's war-torn Donbass region, aid convoys warned residents, burn all wrappers and labels, because Russian-aligned militias were raiding homes based on trash intel. So here's the strategy. First, buy black contractor-grade trash bags. They're thick, opaque, and hard to tear. Second, store extras in places no one thinks to look, behind drywall cutouts, in furnace ducts, even stuffed in pillow shams. Third, never leave trash outside. I use a DIY burn barrel with a lid and filtered chimney. What I can't burn, I crush, bag, and stash in sealed bins in a locked shed with a false floor. And here's a pro move. Decoy trash. Leave empty, low-value cans and visibly torn labels out as bait. Let looters think they've hit the jackpot, while your real supplies are buried 2 feet deep. In a blackout, your garbage can kill you, because the people who follow the flies find the food. So hide your waste, burn your trail, and never forget, what you throw out might get you thrown to the wolves. 6. Solar panels and power generation gear. Most people think solar panels are the ultimate prep. Clean energy, silent, renewable. And yeah, they're great, until your neighbors see that you've got power when nobody else does. That's when you stop being the smart guy on the block and start being the marked man. Listen to this. In Puerto Rico, after Hurricane Maria, portable solar kits were stolen out of people's yards in broad daylight. Some were ripped off rooftops while families slept. Why? because they were the only homes with lights. Same thing happened in Haiti in 2010. Aid workers reported that solar lighting gear was being looted faster than food. Even non-functioning panels were stolen just in case they could be repurposed. This isn't hypothetical. It's happened over and over. Now look at your own gear. Got a Jackery unit? A foldable panel? Maybe a Goal Zero setup sitting on your porch? You're toast. You might as well be hanging a neon sign that says electricity here. Come take it. So what's the solution? Concealment and camouflage. My foldable panels are spray-painted matte brown and stored inside an old camping chair bag. I only use them inside a screened area, behind black fabric, during direct overhead sun. And my power bank? It's labeled old car parts and wrapped in an oily rag. No one touches it. Never leave your panel out. Never brag about solar online. And for the love of all things, don't post photos of your setup. People remember. Also, keep backups. A small crank dynamo, tiny panel kits hidden in books, even basic Peltier devices from camping stores. Because when everyone else is powerless, you having light, music, or a charged radio isn't just hope, it's bait. And predators follow the light. 5. Hunting gear, traps, and fishing supplies. Here's the harshest truth nobody wants to admit. The guy who can feed himself in a blackout, he's worth more dead than alive. Why? Because hunting, trapping, and fishing supplies aren't just tools, they're power. And power breeds envy, theft, and violence. In Bosnia's collapse, people with working hunting rifles and traps vanished. They were either killed for their gear or forced into protection rackets. Same with fishing kits in Venezuela. Homemade rods and nets were being traded for antibiotics and fuel. That tackle box in your garage? Someone's going to kill for it. And no, this isn't just about guns. It's about capability. Snares, lines, lures, reels, even slingshots. All of it screams, "This person won't starve." And that makes you dangerous to groups who want control. So where do you keep yours? Still in a tote labeled camping? Game over. Me? I split mine into kits. One fishing kit stored in a hollowed-out stereo speaker. Snares inside an old DVD case. Slingshot and ammo inside a thermos in the pantry. I even embedded arrowheads into a stack of old tile samples. No one checks tile. And here's the kicker. Don't use your gear close to home. If you catch a rabbit, trap a squirrel, or reel in a fish, don't clean it near your shelter. Smells travel. People follow. And if they see your hands holding protein while their kids cry from hunger, you won't get questions. You'll get raided. Last thing. Rotate your skills. Practice now in secret, off-grid. Because once people realize you can still put meat on the table, they'll either want to be your best friend or your worst nightmare. And in a blackout, there's no in-between. 4. Barter items and trade goods. You've been told to stock extras for trade, right? Coffee, liquor, cigarettes, ammo, meds, lighters, chocolate. And that's smart, until it isn't. Because here's what they don't tell you. Barter gets bloody. In Venezuela, a single bar of soap became worth a day's wages. And it got people robbed, sometimes killed. In the Congo, cartons of cigarettes during militia crackdowns were used like currency, and also as death warrants. Someone saw what you had, and then you disappeared. The black market doesn't care how generous you are. It sees you as supply. And once you're tagged as the guy who has extras, you're not a neighbor anymore. You're a walking convenience store and a soft target. Now, I'm not saying don't trade. I'm saying trade like a ghost. I keep my barter stash in 5 different places. Half-empty bottles of vodka tucked inside hollow logs. A jar of instant coffee buried in an old planter. Razor blades sealed in duct tape rolls. Cigarettes, vacuum-sealed and hidden inside an empty Lysol wipes container. I rotate it all every 6 months. And here's the hard rule. Never trade at your home base. Always meet 2 blocks away, preferably under cover of darkness. And don't go twice to the same person. They'll memorize your walk, your voice, your clothes. Leave decoy items visible, half-used soap, empty lighters, broken matches. Let thieves take that and think they've scored, and never show your full hand, not once. Because the minute someone thinks you've got more, they'll come for it. With friends, with weapons, with no hesitation. Trade like you're starving. Hide your wealth like it's poison. And remember, in the wrong hands, even a stick of gum can become your death sentence. 3. Defensive gear and ammunition. Here's the irony nobody talks about. The more prepared you are to defend yourself, the more dangerous you become to everyone else, especially in a long-term blackout. Firearms, knives, pepper spray, ammo, it all becomes power. And power, in a collapsed society, draws fire. Let's be clear. In Hurricane Katrina, National Guard units were ordered to confiscate legally owned weapons from civilians in high-risk areas. Why? Because armed citizens made them nervous. In New Orleans, door-to-door gun sweeps were real. And you think your neighbors will be any different? When food runs out and chaos creeps in, the guy with a rifle isn't respected. He's feared. And when fear turns to desperation, fear turns deadly. So here's the strategy. First, split your defensive gear. One decoy stash in a basic gun case with cheap rusted ammo. Leave it where it can be found. The rest? Hide it like it's radioactive. I store one firearm in an oil-soaked bag inside my HVAC crawl space. Another's inside a gutted shop vac. Ammo is sealed in labeled containers marked kitty litter and stacked with actual cat supplies. Nobody checks. Second, don't advertise skill. No range photos, no 2A bumper stickers, and never brag about your loadout online. People remember. Third, silence over firepower. Have subsonic rounds, suppressed tools, and a legal explanation if law enforcement ever resurfaces. Because here's the ugly truth. In a blackout, he who is armed is not safe. He is a target, not because people hate you, because they fear what you could do and what you might stop them from doing. Hide your weapons, hide your training, hide your strength, because in the dark, strength is always challenged. 2. Your prepped home. You thought your home was a fortress. But in a blackout, your well-stocked pantry, solar panels, water tanks, and quiet generator are screaming to everyone. This house has everything you need. And here's the harsh reality. Once your home is identified as the place with supplies, it doesn't matter what you have. It's what people think you have. In Venezuela, targeted home invasions increased by over 400% after just one neighbor saw someone carrying in a box of powdered milk. In Bosnia's collapse, families who had been seen cooking, flushing toilets, or burning candles at night were systematically robbed. Sometimes not by strangers, but by neighbors, friends, local authorities. You think your ring cam will save you? There's no power. You think a locked door will stop people who haven't eaten in a week? Think again. Here's what I do. I make my house look like it's already been hit. A broken window boarded up from the outside. Spray paint near the door. A looted sign in faded red letters. I deadbolt my real entrance from the inside and use a crawl space for access. Windows are covered with blackout fabric and foam insulation. No light escapes. No smells. No sound. And don't forget the outside lies. Keep trash cans tipped. Burned wood scattered near the lawn. A few junk items left behind. Let people think the good stuff is gone. Because if they think you've got power, food, or security, they will not stop. You'll be tested, probed, watched, day and night, until they find the weakness. Your house isn't safe? It's bait, unless you hide it in plain sight. Make it look weak. Make it look empty. That's how you stay off the list. 1. Yourself. This is the part nobody wants to hear, because it means every prep, every bag, every supply, you did all that just to make yourself a target. Not for what you have, but for what you know. In a true collapse, skills become the new currency. If you can fix a generator, purify water, treat an infection, make a radio antenna from scrap, or field dress a wound, you are no longer a civilian. You're an asset. Or worse, a threat. In Iraq, interpreters weren't hunted for weapons. They were hunted for knowledge. In Ukraine, civilian drone pilots were abducted by both sides, not for drones, but for how they used them. In any collapse, the moment people realize you know how to survive, you've got a countdown on your head. So here's what you do. You become boring, quiet, you panic with everyone else, you complain about the outage, you show your empty pantry, you stand in the water line like everyone else, even if you don't need to. I fake a limp. I keep dirt under my fingernails. I wear torn clothes on rotation. I do everything to look average, because if I don't, someone smarter than me is going to recruit me or remove me. This is not paranoia. This is pattern. During the Ebola crisis in Liberia, community leaders with health knowledge were targeted by mobs. People didn't trust them. They blamed them. In the dark, fear hunts the smart. So yes, hide your meds, your tools, your maps, but most of all, hide your mindset. Bury your capability. Because if they ever figure out that you're the one who planned ahead, the one who trained, the one who could rebuild while others are falling apart, then you're no longer just a person. You're a prize. And prizes don't live long in a blackout. When the power's out and the world goes dark, it's not the strongest who survive. It's the ones who plan to disappear. If you watch this and thought, I'll deal with that when it happens, you won't get the chance. Because by the time you hear the first generator fire up, or see the first window get smashed, the predators are already moving. And they're looking for the exact things we just covered. Your food, your water, your gear, your mind. So here's the bottom line. Don't just stock it. Hide it. Don't just prepare. Disappear into normalcy. Make your house look empty. Make your trash look useless. Make you look like you've got nothing. Because when panic spreads and the rulebook gets burned, the smartest move isn't to fight or run. It's to become invisible. If you want to dive deeper, I've got more coming. Real tactics, real examples, and real stories from people who lived through total collapse and made it out because they didn't do what everyone else did. So hit subscribe, hit the bell, and share this with someone who thinks they've got it all figured out. Because the worst enemy in a blackout isn't the looter. It's the person who thought they were safe and weren't. Stay hidden. Stay ready.